All right, welcome everybody to The Truth About Addiction and Recovery. I'm Scott Jones, and here with my good friend Mark Astor. Mark, how are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you again. It's been really too long.
It's been a while, but the world is like that now. But before we talk, I just want to let everybody know that you're an attorney.
I am.
Yes, I am.
I don't know if I say that maybe sometimes tongue in cheek, because it's almost a small part of what we do, right?
Right, but it's the basics. It's like the base of what you do, but you've built out. You're not like the attorney that people would run to if they got hit by a car. Well, maybe you are.
Well, I'm not, and I don't even dress like one. I mean, here I am in jeans and a t-shirt. That's my regular attire.
So you are. Well, tell us, what your practice is all about and the direction you work in.
So we help families whose loved ones have substance use, mental illness, and eating disorders. That's what we do. It's the only thing we do.
Okay, so you say we. You got several attorneys that work with you?
Yep, so I have two other lawyers that work with us. Okay. My partner, Audra, does all the guardianship work. My other partner, Lewis, does criminal work, because sometimes people who have these issues tend to get in trouble, and the goal is to get them out.
A few shows together. First, how are you?
I feel good in this crazy world we're apparently living in, not to get political, but I feel like I'm in an episode of Seinfeld, and we're in the bizarro world right now.
We really are. I mean, between the politics that are going on, the civil unrest and the protesting, which then attracts the rioting and all that stuff. I know that's crazy. And then you put like COVID on top of all that. I mean, a year ago, if somebody explained how we would be living our lives a year ago, would you have believed them?
I would have been like, what have you been smoking? I might have said, listen, we need to drug test you right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. So personally, has this affected you, or even professionally? How has this affected what you do?
I think what we've seen is, in the arena that we work in, it just seems like it's sort of created an environment for relapse, people to start using. Mental illness. I'm getting a lot of calls on people who are getting Baker acted and now they can't get out. I mean, it really has sort of thrown the arena that we work in into somewhat of a sort of topsy-turvy world.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Baker Act and Marchman Act in just a few minutes, but so what have you had to do to adjust for what's going on today? I mean, are you doing a lot more Zoom calls, or what are you doing? I mean,
well, it's done a couple of things. One, I hate to say that it's been good for business, but it's been good for business. A lot more people have been reaching out to us for help. I mean, a lot more people. It also, I think in a positive way, has dragged the legal profession finally into the 21st century. And other than, Palm Beach County, where I'm based, which, everything else, all the other courthouses are pretty much closed, and we're using Zoom, which has been great, because it has enabled me to do hearings in counties as far north as Tallahassee, Leon County, and as far west as Pinellas and Pasco, to do cases there that I wouldn't normally take, because if I did a case in Leon, I'd have to drive up there or fly up there. It's 2 days out of the office. It just doesn't work for me. And now I can help. So it means I can help a lot more people, and I hope they keep doing it, quite frankly.
Yeah, I've seen that with, certainly you're talking about in your profession, a lot of other professions, and including the treatment profession. Whereas in the past, when somebody would go through an addiction treatment program, and maybe they'd come to Florida and they go to their addiction treatment program, and then they fly back to Minnesota or Missouri or wherever they're from. And then that's it, they're gone. But now the treatment centers and most treatment modalities have found a way to adjust themselves and be online. So even though you leave the treatment, they get to do an aftercare program with you online. And we've been talking about it for years, but now the hand has been forced.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great thing. And to a certain aspect, it means if somebody's flying back to their home state, they can still do treatment down here sort of virtually, right? Which is great.
Absolutely.
Because even with all the sort of bad publicity the treatment industry down here got for many years, this is still a great place to come for treatment. There's a great selection of treatment centers. There's a real variety, and there's a lot of people down here who still care and want to help people.
Yeah. Let's get that right now. That we understand there has been some malfeasance. There has been some problems, but in any industry there's going to be a problem. So it just happened to be concentrated in a specific area, which made it look really bad. But there's so many people out there trying to do the right thing and who are doing the right thing.
Right.
So I know those are the people you work with when you're
we try to be really careful who we work with. We have to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now let's talk a moment about the Baker Act, Marchman Act. Now we usually hear those two things, but what is the difference? Just a kind of a Reader's Digest version. What is a Marchman? What is a Baker?
So basically, those are both involuntary commitment statutes. In other words, statutes that allow for lack of a better word, the state to take control of somebody for a certain period of time and keep them either in a period of treatment or a period of stabilization. So the Baker Act, which is typically, not always, but most of the time initiated by law enforcement, is a 72-hour stabilization hold for somebody who's having some type of mental health crisis. Most of the time it's, there's a cry for help because they're maybe threatening to take their own life. They've become dangerous to themselves. They've become a danger to somebody else. And so it enables law enforcement to take somebody to a facility. They hold them for up to 72 hours, stabilize them, and then the idea is to let them go afterwards. It's getting abused, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
The Marchman Act is a process that can be initiated by the state, but typically is a private cause of action that's normally commenced by a family member. Typically it's mom and dad, but not always, who basically come to me and say, look, our loved one, and it's typically an adult child, has a drug issue, or, some type of substance use disorder, and they either won't go to treatment or they won't stay in treatment long enough, and we need you to help us to get them there and keep them there so they can experience long-term recovery. Okay. So Baker is 72 hours. Marchman can be chunks of 90 days.
Right. Is it correct that when there is an immediate crisis of maybe somebody possibly going to hurt themselves, the Baker Act happens a little faster than the Marchman Act happens? Is that true? Or
well, so not to get too convoluted. So
yeah.
So the Baker Act and Marchman Act actually have very similar provisions. They both have a 72-hour hold provision. Both can be initiated by law enforcement. Both can be initiated by running to court, and both can be initiated by a qualified professional. The difference is the Marchman Act is very rarely used that way. It's typically running to court.
Gotcha.
Whereas the Baker Act is typically initiated by either the police getting called to the scene somewhere, or a clinician either in an emergency room or in some type of clinical setting, calling law enforcement saying, look, this person is about to hurt themselves. I need to get them stabilized. So
professionally, I mean, obviously we're talking about police officers, clinicians, and courtrooms. The people who are there kind of already understand all of this. So let's talk to families, because I think that's probably where, especially today, let's put it out there right now. First of all, the opioid epidemic, just because the pandemic with COVID is going on, doesn't mean the opioid epidemic has gone away. As a matter of fact, it's gotten worse. There are more overdoses. There are more people relapsing, as you said. There's a lot more pain out there. And sometimes, because of the quarantine, the only people who might even have a shot at recognizing what's going on or seeing the problem might be the family.
Yeah, in fact, I think because people, we sort of got quarantined for a significant period of time.
Yep.
Families are spending time with their loved ones and saying, oh my goodness, this is what's going on. We really need to deal with this.
Yeah. So let's say that mom and dad are looking at their son Johnny, and they're saying, Johnny is becoming very dangerous to himself, maybe to us, or he cannot correct his behavior, and it's getting bad and worse and worse. So what steps would a family take, not knowing anything about anything, just they need to get help? What would you suggest?
So it depends on the level of help, right? If there's an immediate crisis, then
well, let's define that in a family setting.
Right.
What would define an immediate crisis?
I mean, somebody is threatening to hurt themselves. Somebody is threatening to hurt other people. Right. Okay. I mean, they need help like right now. Right.
It's not just, hey, Johnny's pissing me off. He's making me mad. He didn't clean his room, so I'm gonna send him away. That's not what we're talking about.
Maybe Johnny becomes violent. Right.
Right.
Starts throwing things. Starts attacking people. Okay. And it doesn't necessarily have to be there's drugs involved. He's just in a sort of environment or a state where it appears there's something going on, and he needs help right now.
What about statements that Johnny makes? If Johnny makes statements about hurting himself or just wanting to die, those kind of things.
Absolutely.
That's a clue, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big red flag. So obviously at that point, I say to the family, look, dial 911 and say, look, this is what's going on. And they will typically send both law enforcement and, emergency medical personnel to come over and, try and address the situation. And if they think the person needs, more than just an hour or two of stabilization that perhaps the emergency medical people can handle, then they can take him somewhere.
All right. When you're calling 911, you're not sending Johnny to jail. You're not. I think people get that confused. Calling the police when somebody is in that condition, they feel like they're going to get them in trouble. That's not what this is about. This is about getting them help.
That's not what it's about. But look, if the police get called and little Johnny starts, taking a swing at the cops, I'm not saying that couldn't happen.
Well, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It could. Now, But that shouldn't be the focus, right? Not saying, well, I'm not going to call the police because he might go to jail. I mean, frankly, being in jail might be a place where he can get stable too. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying he might be safer in jail as opposed to at home, right? The family might be safer if he's in jail. And again, I'm not saying call the police, have him taken to jail, but something you have to get him in an environment where, one, he's not a danger to anybody else, and two, he's not a danger to himself.
Okay. All right. So, again, let's just kind of put this in perspective. We recognize Johnny's in an immediate crisis situation, either through violence or through statements of hurting himself or passing, whatever it might be. There's an immediate crisis. They're going to call 911.
Right.
Okay. What would, how do you follow that up, or what are the next steps? Maybe it's not as much of a crisis. Maybe it's just an ongoing problem, but they want to get him help before it becomes a crisis. Does that come into play here?
Sure. So, I mean, I think it really depends, right? Is there, a lot of the time it depends, like, what's really driving the bus, as it were, right? Is it substance use or is it mental health? And so sometimes it's not always easy to define. The Marchman Act addresses substance use and co-occurring mental illness. But if there isn't substance use or you can't prove substance use, then maybe you got to start looking at a guardianship, right? Which is, I think of it as the Baker Act on steroids to a certain extent.
Okay. It's kind of like you're taking, you're assuming the role of making their choices for them. Is that correct?
You are, and some families don't want to do that. So the court can also appoint a professional guardian. So the idea being, you're going to say to a court, look, my son or my daughter isn't capable of making what we would all consider rationally objective, decisions that are in their best interest, right? They have a mental health issue, something's going on. They have anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, whatever it happens to be. And so somebody has to make those decisions for them. Otherwise, they're going to hurt themselves, or they might hurt somebody else, or both.
Right.
So that's what a guardianship does, and it really allows the parents to step into the child's shoes and start making decisions for them. And it could be on a temporary basis, it could be more of a long-term basis, but that's sort of the general idea. And it's really focused on when you need quite a bit more control than a Marchman Act gives you. Maybe they need to take medication so they stay stable and just refusing to take it. And you need a court order for that, right? Or you want access to their medical records so that you can see what's going on. Or they have access to funds, so you want to be able to control the finances because, well, they're using it to feed the habit. So a guardianship gives you a little bit more control, but a Marchman Act will also allow the parents to make a decision to send their loved one to treatment.
Okay.
So it's a little narrower than a guardianship, but if it's primary substance use, it's typically the best way to go.
Now, who could advocate for this? I mean, obviously, if the parents of a minor can do that, the parents of but if the kid is 30 years old and mom and dad decide we're going to do a Marchman, can you still do that? Or can you do it on your roommate or your friend or your spouse? I mean, what are the situations where you're allowed to make these requests?
But basically, one person with direct personal knowledge.
That's it.
Yeah. So you got to have knowledge, right? And so a lot of the time,
it could be a coworker.
It could be a coworker.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
It could be, but then we have to be careful that we're making sure the coworker doesn't have some axe to grind and there's not a reason for it, right? I get those calls too, right? And I always say, that, the work that we do is designed to act as a shield, not as a sword. And if I think that you're trying to do it to, using what we do to try and stick it to somebody, I've had families call me and say, I want to evict my son or my daughter, or a roommate says, I want to evict them because they have a drug use. Well, guess what? I don't do eviction work and I don't put people out in the street.
Right.
If you want to help them get treatment, that's a conversation I'll have with you. But you want to evict them? I'm not your guy.
Right.
So when it's typically the family. So most of the time you're comfortable with the idea they're trying to help somebody. But yes, it could be one person with direct personal knowledge. That's it.
All right. Okay. So let's walk through the whole process, if you don't mind.
No, I'm happy to share
if you don't mind, because I think this is really interesting. Let's say that mom and dad decide that Johnny's in trouble. Johnny is in his early 20s. Maybe he got kicked out of college. He's back home, but he's very depressive. He's using a lot of opiates or drinking a lot or whatever it might be. And he starts to exhibit signs that he's going to hurt himself. And they decide they want to do a Marchman Act. So let's take through the steps. They call somebody, and then this happens, that happens, and that happens. So if you can kind of give us that ABC, that would be helpful.
I'll give you the ABCs.
All right.
So Marchman's a two-step process, okay? The first part of the Marchman Act is a period of assessment and stabilization if they need it. The second part is a period of treatment. So the court is not going to, cannot, and will not order treatment without an assessment. Basically, somebody who is a, quote, qualified professional, like a licensed clinical social worker, coming into court and saying, Your Honor, we've looked at the person's history, right? We've drug tested them, we reviewed the petition, we spoke to them, we spoke to the family, and this is our clinical recommendation for treatment. So that needs to be done. Now, because we're in an environment where the person is not going to do this voluntarily, they're not going to willingly go to a facility and get assessed.
Right.
I need a court order to get that done. And that court order can be done one of two ways, either on an emergency basis or a non-emergency basis. The non-emergency basis means we file something with the court, and the court says, okay, we need to have a hearing, and I need to make sure there's a reasonable basis for ordering the person to go get assessed. Most of the time, people call me when it's an emergency, meaning things need to get done, and they need to get done right now because we've reached the point where we've had to call a lawyer, we've had to make a very difficult decision, and now we're ready to do this. So most of the time, it's an emergency, and that means that we're going to file something, and we're going to do it without little Johnny or little Jane even knowing about it, and they don't find out about it until the cops come to the house and say, okay, let's go. We have a court order in our hand, and it says we're going to take you to this facility where you can be held for up to 5 days, and they can do an assessment. They'll stabilize you, do a drug test, and they'll make that determination. So that's part one, which is the assessment period. During that 5-day window, and I try not to get too technical here because the 5-day window can get extended. Once the second request is made, the second document is filed with the court, which is a petition for treatment services, where now we're going to ask the court for a hearing, so that part has to be done with a hearing. Once that has been requested, they can hold the person longer than 5 days. And the goal was always to get them picked up, taken to a facility, then we have a hearing, then they go off to treatment. We don't want any gaps because things happen during those gaps.
Yeah.
And I don't always have control over that depending on the facility, but we try not to have any gaps from the time to pick up to the time to treatment. So they go from the assessment period, right? There's 5 days. Then we have a hearing in front of it. Could be a magistrate, which is sort of like a junior judge, or just the judge, depending on which courthouse we're in, which county we're in. And at that hearing, the person can do one of two things. They can say, you know what, I'm going to go. I'll agree to go to treatment. Or they can say, I'm not going. There's nothing wrong with me. And at that point, whoever the petitioner is, typically the parents, is going to testify and tell the judge what's been going on, and say, look, this is what's been going on, and we have to prove our case. We have a small trial. It's only an hour or two, but still, it's like a real trial. Rules of evidence, rules of procedure, witnesses testify, evidence gets introduced. The lawyers make all the objections they can make, and then the judge makes a decision. And that will be based on the testimony of either mum or dad or both, and the person who did the assessment. And then the idea is to get the person sent to treatment for a period of up to 90 days.
Okay. All right. Now, at the end of that 90 days, does it stop? Is there a report you have to do at the end? Do you have to go to the court and show that you completed? How does that work at the end?
So the statute allows us to petition any time before you get to the last 10 days. So if it's a 90-day order, you got to file before the 80th day and ask the court for an extension.
If you need it, yes.
If you need it.
Yeah.
So, I'll tell you, you know better than I do. 90 days is typically the beginning if they've been sick for many years.
Right.
6 months is great, right? Because the goal is always to try and keep somebody clean for 1 year, right? That seems to be the magic number in terms of getting over the hump and making sure they stay in recovery. So the more treatment you can do to get you to that 1 year, the more likely they are to stay in recovery. So let's say they do 90 days, and on day 75, the parents call me and they say, look, we've spoken to their clinician, they need more time. So we file a petition for an extension. We go back in front of the judge, and we say, Your Honor, we need more time. Now, if they don't agree to it, I'm going to have the clinician testify as to why they need more time. Most of the time, they agree, because now they're 90 days into it, and things have started to really start to gel, right? That hopefully that light bulb's gone off. They're starting to experience, sobriety for a period longer than they have done in many, many years, and they're starting to think clearly. So very infrequently is the extension challenged. But it happens every once in a while, and if that does, we put on our case. Okay.
So this is interesting, and I think it's really good for people to know this, because I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure you've come across it, where families are just like shaking their heads. I don't know what to do. It keeps getting worse.
And it does. That's the nature of the disease.
And that's part of what you were talking about with the non-emergency. It's kind of looking for, it's not an emergency right now, but all indications are we're heading towards that, and it looks like it's going to get a lot worse. That's what, that's an indication. You could do something at that point. It doesn't have to be wait until the absolute last minute.
Yeah. They say it's a family disease.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, look, it's I always tell families that doing a Marchman Act or a guy, it's a serious commitment of time, energy, and money. Right. And it's a difficult decision for families to make. The idea that the police are going to come and take their child away to a facility. I mean, that's it's a daunting ask, of the family, and maybe they have to get their head wrapped around the idea that they're at the end of the rope, right? I mean, either they're going to treatment, they're going to go to prison, or they're going to go to the morgue. Which one do you want, right? And they may have already experienced, their loved one going to jail. They may have already experienced an overdose, right? So they know the finality of the situation, and now they're ready to take this next step.
Now, what role would an attorney play in this whole thing, and how do you benefit in this process, or where are you needed in this process?
So, obviously, we're doing all the legal work.
Okay.
Right. So,
and it's extensive. I mean, there's a lot of papers you got to file at the right times, and if you miss it, you lose out.
I mean, I get families that go to the courthouse and do it, and they don't realize the maneuver. Go to the courthouse and do it yourself. And if you're able to get get it going, what families don't realize is that when they get into court, their loved one is most certainly going to get appointed a lawyer who's very skilled in the Marchman Act. And now they're at a hearing where one side has a lawyer, their loved one who doesn't want to go to treatment has a lawyer, and they don't.
So the clients will get a lawyer to fight against the Marchman Act because they don't want to go, and so if you really want to make sure this happens, you need representation.
I think you're at a significant disadvantage. The other part of what we do is obviously we work with a small number of treatment centers, right? So that helps the family narrow down where they're going to go. Mm-hmm. And also, I've got a team. I've got a retired cop on staff, and so a lot of the time he will go on the pickup with law enforcement, which makes it not only smoother, but it also it acts as a liaison between the family and the police, right? And obviously, if the person is missing, right, we don't have an exact location. We have an idea, but we don't have an exact location. The police won't go looking for them, and it's not because they don't care. It's just they just don't have the time. So a lot of the time, we're going to look for people, and if we find them and we have a court order in our hands, then my investigator can call up, one of his friends in local law enforcement because he's an ex-cop and say, "Look, I've got this court order here, and I found the person. Can you send a couple of deputies down here?" Okay. And that makes things so much smoother.
Yeah.
It really does. So
at the end of the day, this is about saving lives.
It really is.
So I can assume there's some times when it doesn't work out right. Or
there
it
are
doesn't
cases
work out where, you walk away and you think, I did everything I could, but this is not, we're going to lose people. It's the nature of the disease.
And I used to think when I first started doing this 5 years ago now, I say, I'm going to save everybody. But that is not realistic. I've had people that were in long-term recovery, 9 months, a year, and then I've had a call from the family to say, they passed. That's not an easy call to get. It's a horrible call to get. I also had a case where a father came down here from New Jersey. His daughter had been shipped down here to a treatment center, and she literally disappeared. She hadn't been seen or heard of in 3 weeks. And I got the call because they knew that we were pretty good at finding people. So I rushed to court, got a court order, and I had my investigator running around for 10 days, 2 weeks looking for her. And every time we got a lead, we were always either an hour late or a week, a day late, or whatever it was. And ultimately, they found what was left of her because they had to identify by her medical records in the woods somewhere in Palm Beach County. She was dead before I even got the call, but nobody knew it.
Right.
She had been raped and brutally murdered. But so I get those. I had that case too, and that was a tough pill for all of us to swallow because here I am thinking, I'm going to save this girl, and she was already gone, and the father was devastated. I mean, even my investigator, who's retired cop, even he was just beside himself because he's really good at finding people.
Yeah,
and here we couldn't save the girl.
Well, Mark, you and I can go on for probably days and talk about the pain and the things we've seen. But have there been those moments where you're like, the light bulb goes and you say, this is why I do that? Because maybe you thought this is a hopeless case. This is never going to happen. And then something miraculous happens, right?
Yeah. I went to an extension hearing actually just this past week where the girl had been in treatment for 90 days. And it was like, whoa. I mean, here's this, brilliant, beautiful woman. Just she came to life, right? Before that, she was just a mess. And all of a sudden the light bulb went off. And I mean, just the reaction from the family, and I mean everybody. I mean, it's really rewarding, and we get a lot of those moments when you see the light bulb go off and the person makes a 180. It's great.
Well, you the funny that you start off as their enemy in a sense.
Yeah.
You're aligned with the family or whoever's calling, but for the client themselves, hey, you are public enemy number one.
Yeah, I've had that. That's okay.
But
I'm used to that.
But when they get better, all of a sudden it's like, hey, thank you.
I have had people that I marchman acted that absolutely hated me, and then 6 months, 9 months down the road, call me and say, "Listen, can you help me? My boyfriend or my girlfriend needs help."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Sure, I'm happy to help you."
Wow.
So those are rewarding moments, right? I mean, because here's the person that wanted, I'm the bad guy, and also they're calling me for help, which is great. Makes it all worthwhile.
That's fantastic. So if somebody needs to know more about these things, is there a resource, a good resource, or can they call your office? Maybe they're just like, okay, I don't know if I'm here yet or not, but I really want to have this information on hand. And I'll tell you what, just Googling Marchman Act doesn't give you very good information. So what is a good source for information?
Well, so we have a lot of information on our website that I give away for free. I even have an ebook that I wrote. I sell it on Kindle, but you can download it for free on the website too.
Oh, wow.
It's all about, it tells
you. It's like a love story, right?
It's a little bit of a love story.
Harlequin romance or something
like that, yeah. I wish it was as eloquent as that, but unfortunately I haven't gotten there yet. But it's basically, it tells you a little bit about our team and talks about, the Marchman Act and guardianship and just sort of the work that we do.
Okay, good.
So they can find it on our website, which is drugandalcoholattorneys.com.
Drugandalcoholattorneys.com. It's right on your screen with phone numbers on your screen. Make sure you give them a shout. If you have a problem, call them. If they, sometimes they're not sure if they need an attorney or what they need, but call and find out, because we are talking about lives, right?
We are, and I'm happy to spend, some time on the phone with a family just to get an idea of what they're looking to do and see if we can even help them. And I'm a pretty blunt, guy. I'll tell if I can't help somebody, I'll tell them I don't think I can help you, and it could be for a number of different reasons. Maybe I just can't prove the case. Right. I'll tell them, listen, I won't be able to prove this in court. You're going to be frustrated with the result. I don't think I can even file this thing. Here's what we need to do to remedy the situation. So I'll tell the family if they have a case or don't have a case.
And we cannot state it enough, people. If your motivation is not to help the person, don't do this.
Don't call me.
If your motivation is to hurt them or to punish them or to get back at them, this is not. Put put Saran wrap over the toilet seat. Pull a prank. Yeah. Don't do this. This is serious. The time that you spend on the crackpots takes away time from people who really need help.
Yeah, listen, I had a client who had me put her boyfriend in treatment for 60 days and everything went fine, and then she wanted to have it extended, and the clinician said to me, he doesn't meet criteria anymore. And I told the client, I said, he doesn't meet criteria, and she jumped up and down, threatened to file a bar complaint against me. So, I basically fired the client. I withdrew from the case, and I said, go ahead, file a bar complaint. I'm not doing it. I don't care, and I'll tell the bar if I have to, but I'm not filing this. They're telling me he's clinically not appropriate, and I'm not doing it. And it was obvious what was going on. She reached the stage where she wanted to just hurt him because apparently, I guess, while he was in treatment, he met somebody else and decided he was done. Not only was he sober, but he wanted to move on with his life in every way possible. Okay, and it's not for me to get involved in the personal aspect, but I told her, if you're just trying to do this to hurt him, which it was clear she was, I'm not doing it. You can threaten me all you want. It's not happening.
I hope he stayed sober and had a good life after that. I really hope he did, because, that's ridiculous. Well, the bottom line is he got into treatment anyway, so that's a good thing. But, Mark, this is great work that you do. Obviously, it's personally rewarding for you.
It is. It's exhausting when we deal, because there's a very significant emotional component to the work we do. Right?
Well, have you done other things in law?
Yep.
Like what? Like what kind of things?
I was prosecutor for a number of years right out of law school. So I interned in 93 with the state attorney's office here in Palm Beach. They hired me right out of law school.
Wow.
And I was with them till 1999. So I was prosecutor for many years. I've done defense work for a number of years. But this is the most rewarding work I do.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's too personal, but
that's okay.
But what led you in that direction? Here you're a prosecutor, a defense attorney. Both of those opportunities to probably make a whole lot more money and probably expand yourself even more. Why choose this direction that is really so narrow and focused?
Yeah, I think I went through my own sort of personal issues where I wasn't really happy in life.
Yeah.
And I had all the material things, but I was completely miserable. And through my own sort of journey, which I'm not going to really get into in terms of the details, but through my own journey, what I realized was I didn't have purpose. I wasn't helping anybody. And so I also realized I was surrounded by people, and had been for many years, who had substance use and mental illness. And I said, okay, this is it. This is the aha moment. I need a law firm that helps people with these issues. And that was really the springboard. I didn't know how I didn't know how I was going to do it. But, sometimes when you make a decision, the universe brings the opportunities to you and leads the path to you.
That's fantastic.
Yep, it's good stuff.
Mark, listen, I appreciate you coming into the Truth About Addiction and Recovery, joining us today. It's always good to
I love
see you.
coming in. Listen, you don't have to ask me twice to come here. We always have fun together.
We always do. Maybe next show we're going to do something where we'll have a little more fun and talk about, I know you must be going out of your skin because I know how much you like to travel. And right now you can't do that.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of staycations. I did one. Actually, I went to Disney World, I don't know, about 5 or 6 weeks ago with my significant other, who's also my law partner, and we spent 2 days at Disney, which was interesting because it was like 95 degrees, and they made us wear the masks, and it was nice because it was quiet, but it wasn't relaxing. We had fun. It was a chance to switch off.
You went to Disney? Did you went on the rides and everything?
You know what we did? I did Epcot the first day, and we did Animal Kingdom, which I'd never done before, the second day.
Yeah, I haven't done that either. It's Animal Kingdom. Okay,
it's fun, but it's it's really, really hot. But the good news is they're only allowing in like 25% of the amount of people they normally would, so there's not more than a 10 or 15 minute wait for a ride. It's great.
That's fantastic.
I know, right?
Well, there are bonuses. You just got to look for them, right?
I'm serious. Go to Disney or something. Have fun with your family. Switch off for a weekend. You need to.
Listen, your loved ones, I hope you all stay safe.
Thanks, you too.
We will see you again real soon. And once again, I want to thank Mark Astor from the Drug and Alcohol Attorneys. Drug and Alcohol Attorneys. Thank you. I was going to say Drug and Addiction Attorneys. Drug and Alcohol Attorneys. Again, give them a shout. Check out their website. Ask questions because it just might save your loved one's life. And we'll catch you next time. Mark, thanks again, man.
Good to see you, brother.
Take care.